Hey, 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 welcome. Looks like it's going to be a small chat room today. This is my first time doing a 7 a.m. workshop. Or at least, well, I'm based out of PST, so it's 7 a.m. for me at least. Let me know if the music is too loud or um, it's just kind of annoying to have. Good morning. Oh my god, it's Sparky! Hey! I remember seeing you in the Discord chat. Too much music for you? I got you, fam. Do you want me to like tune down the music or still play it? This can be a very personalized experience. Okay. So, well, I guess since it's just you and me, let me know how I'm doing. No music guy. Got it, got it. Um, okay, well, when Malik drops in, they can let me know and I can play the music again, just a little bit quietly. Thanks for sharing. All right, so I'm gonna just assume that you've checked in. The link is also in the Discord announcement. I'm also using a new like slides framework. I've used it before, because I was using Obsidian for a while and they had like a plugin for this. But I found the underlying like library that allows me to make slides in HTML, which is pretty cool. So um, yeah. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a coach at MLH. I do a few things, but I mostly do web development and teaching people how to do things. Oh, glad to hear that. Yeah, I figure it just it just makes sense. I've definitely forgotten to add my stream resources to the announcement before. Um, but now I think I'm just gonna start putting everything in the GitHub repo and just drop that. So, about this workshop, this is part of a three-part series um, on web development. And so we want to focus less on coding and just more on dropping resources. I don't know what your level of familiarity is with web development. So feel free to let me know and I can try to cater today's workshop according to that. Um, the idea behind the workshop design is that they'll support each other, but you don't need to be at all of them. The main thing I want to focus on is, I guess, just like trying out a few different Jamstack static site generators. And we'll talk more about what that means in a little bit. Um, and I always like, um, I, I, I took a few design classes, and so I like to try to approach things from the design perspective. Um, so yeah, we'll also be learning how to use whiteboards and make lo-fi prototypes and hi-fi prototypes. Hi, I just noticed a few more people joined the stream. Thank you for joining. If you haven't already, all of the resources and links and stuff are in the announcement. Make sure to check in there and let me know in chat what your, I guess, like current level of web development is. That way I can try to cater the stream to that. Okay, so on the agenda for today, we're going to be looking at what Jamstack means. Then we're going to look at some learning resources for web development, specifically catered around Jamstack. And then we'll also be designing our own documentation website. So no need to take notes. Everything's going to be available to you. I've already pasted it in the Slack or in the GitHub. Hi, Malik. Ah, there you go. Welcome, welcome. Okay, cool. Thanks for dropping in your familiarity. That will help me a lot. So, what is Jamstack? There's a beautiful website that is just called jamstack.org, I believe. I have the link here, but right now, just because of the way that my slide deck's working, I'm not going to be able to really click too much into these links. But yeah, basically, it's a architectural pattern that separates the content from the experience. And so instead of like writing like all of your content in like raw HTML, you could write it in Markdown instead. And there's a lot of other benefits from doing this, from using Jamstack websites. This is just one of the big ones for me because it makes it so that non-technical people can contribute to code bases by just focusing on their own content instead of like learning HTML. And one thing I really like about the Jamstack architecture is that it really helps reinforce the drive principles of don't repeat yourself. And if you aren't familiar, this is a software engineering, like I guess like approach or like philosophy to writing code. Reusable code is the emphasis. And so like if you're writing like hello world like 20 times, maybe you should consider putting that in a loop. Right? So it's that kind of stuff. Um, and if you've been like a really hard and fast like follower of this philosophy, you recognize that it can be a little bit difficult, but frameworks help a lot for this. And so we'll be covering what kinds of frameworks there are and web development. Well, you make it easy to guess. Also, Sparky definitely warmed up the room before you dropped in. Ah, okay. So, um, here's another cool, very scientific graph that I wrote to kind of like demonstrate why I think Jamstack is a good way to go for, I guess, like learning web development. One of the big things is that the amount of time it takes to actually build one is very similar to using a no-code tool, like, um, oh gosh, what's the really big one? Uh, WordPress. I don't know why that took me so long. And Notion, right? So like you could build websites almost just as fast as the no code things, and you have a lot more customizability if you're able to do this. Um, okay, I will check out that link later. But I gotta get through this right now. So by homebrew, I just mean like anything that you just like custom build yourself. So that means without frameworks or even with frameworks, but like without following the Jamstack architectural style. And so you can end up focusing a lot more time on actually just focusing on the content instead of the mechanics of like building a button that like moves between pages and building all of the routing behind that. And so I think another really nice thing is that like with the Jamstack architecture, you're still coding a website, right, from scratch. It's just that it's just that you get a lot more, I guess, like structure behind doing it, and less things that you have to custom build. And so I found this really neat video. It's called "Web Dev the Right Way" by Awesome, and this person made a very good, like, I guess, like holistic overview of like web development and like where all the frameworks belong in uh, the world of web development. And so I would really recommend checking out this video. Once again, that's going to be pasted in it's available in the GitHub repo that's in the GitHub, wow, Discord announcement. Okay, but here's a quick like summary of some of the things that I want to highlight. So from the video, it talks a little bit about MPA, which is the multi-page application. And so this is like a very like traditional style of web development. When you were learning web development, or if you haven't, you may start. by just creating like raw HTML files and then linking them together. And every time you do that, if you change between pages, it typically takes like a full like page reload whenever you change pages in this multi-page application. And then so we found out that we could make it so that your whole page doesn't reload if you ask your browser to, I guess, like rewrite the things in the HTML. And so that gave birth to the single page application. And it started getting to the stage where we found out that we could make the browser, we could just send the browser like a bunch of building materials to build the HTML file. Uh, and so we only send some JavaScript instead of like the HTML and the CSS, and it's all generated in the browser. The problem with that is that it is slower. And then so in recent years, we started working towards building a more like hybrid sort of like website system where we take the best of both worlds. Something that maybe sends a bunch of a few static files, but it like auto populates like certain parts of it. And then so that's where like I guess meta frameworks come into play. And there's a few examples of these, but most of what we're going to be looking at today are going to be meta frameworks for building like static websites. And if you don't know what static versus dynamic websites are, static websites are websites that look the same to everybody, and dynamic websites are websites that are, I guess, like personalized to your current experience, your like login stuff. So things like Amazon is a very like dynamic website because it changes according to who you are and your browsing patterns on there and what you've done on there. So there's a few things I really like about using meta frameworks and why I believe you should start with learning a meta framework instead of just like jumping into uh, web development from scratch. That is because it takes a hybrid approach. It does this thing that allows you to do this thing that's called hydration, where you could make some parts of your website like dynamic and some parts of it static, and the emphasis on templating, which is the thing that reinforces the do not repeat yourself kind of philosophy. Um, but yeah, so something crazy is that like 43% of all websites on the internet all run like WordPress, and WordPress is like the engine for building static websites. So, um, I think that the world would be a little bit of a better place if we could get more websites on the, I guess, more websites to be built with code instead of like no code tools. Because as cool as no code is at making things accessible, it doesn't make you like a more technical person. And so once you kind of start getting better understanding of things, just society gets better. Education, you know. Um, but yeah, okay. So that's enough about trying to convince you all to learn Jamstack. We're going to talk a little bit about site generators. So most of the meta frameworks that we're going to be looking at are site generators, and this is the principles that they kind of fall under. They all adhere to the Jamstack architecture. WordPress websites are so easy to hack. Ah, yeah. Well, I will not make a comment about that because Major League Hacking is about building projects and not about breaking them. Yeah, hacking together. Okay, so if we go back to this Jamstack website where it kind of talks about, I guess, like what Jamstack is, um, we'll see that there's a bunch of actually examples of these site generators. And so we'll see Next.js is the most popular one. And so we actually have a few other coaches at MLH that really love this. One of them being the other Ryan that is an active coach. So if you want to pick up on Next.js, feel free to drop by his streams. I don't believe he's streaming this week. Um, there's a bunch of really cool ones. They're all written in different languages. So if your tech stack is specific to a specific language, you could just keep on searching these until you find one that you actually like. For me, I've been playing around a lot with Docusaurus, Astro, and Oh, did I scroll past it? 11T root, just right over here. Okay, so I'll talk about those more in a little bit, but let's just take a peek at Docusaurus. Da, 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 da. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what I was looking for there. Um, so which one are we going to build for this workshop? We are going to be building, I guess, just like a few of these. I'm going to build at least the Docusaurus and 11T templates and show you how to get started with a Jamstack website with actually like zero code because we can use this wonderful thing. It's called templates. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. I'm just going to open up this link right here and feel free to follow along um, as I go through this. So Docusaurus is actually a open source project made by Meta, and it's a super cool one. Um, so if we just go ahead, go into the docs, or we can do docusaurus.new. Oh, wait, that just takes us here. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up using StackBlitz. And because TypeScript's a little bit weird to read if you've never seen TypeScript before, we're gonna just start with vanilla JavaScript. And so this doesn't have any, I guess, like um, component frameworks. And when I say component frameworks, I'm talking about things like React and Vue and Svelte, um, things that allow you to make reusable and like interactive, stateful components and whatnot. Okay, let's see. npm install. It looks like I had a little bit of trouble auto resolving that dependency install. Okay, so while I jump into that, I guess I can talk a little bit about what StackBlitz is for a second. StackBlitz is basically it's like GitHub Codespaces, in the sense that like it opens up a VM, like a virtual machine where you could like have a full instance of like Visual Studio Code, like a full instance text editor in your browser, which makes it super accessible. So anything with a browser can technically code. What is going on here? Not found in cache. I have no idea what that is. Worst comes to worst, we'll just make a new repo and we'll try running it there. Um, da, 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 da. Okay, let's see what version of npm we've got. We've already got the latest stable version. Mm, could I zoom a little? Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm just going to close this site and then force it to make a new one. Let's see what happens. We'll try the other link over here, the code sandbox link, if this doesn't work. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Can I share the link? Which link do you want? Do you want the Docusaurus link? Just want to make sure I'm dropping the right link. Okay. Looks like we're still having the same issue, so not going to run this. Unfortunate. Live demos go burr. Let's just try running the code sandbox. All right, I got you, fam. You could also just type docusaurus.new. But here is the link there too. Okay, let's see how this is going. So it looks like it compiled successfully. It's taking its time building, which is good. Wow, look at that. There's a bunch of people on this. Okay, so I guess while that's happening, we can take a look at the um, working directory. So we've got .docusaurus, which is just config files. We don't really need to change anything in here. Actually, yeah, it says very much that we should not change anything under the hidden directory right there. And we can look over here. We can see that there's this thing that's the blog folder. And so it looks like this is where all of the content is. And it looks like you can also embed things under folders like that instead of just creating markdown files. And so this pattern is very useful for if you've got a bunch of like assets that you want to have for a specific blog post or content page. So if we take a peek in here, well, this is just a lorem ipsum thing. It looks like there's some stuff at the top of this. So if we were to, no, it refused to connect. Bummer. Okay, you know what? It's okay. We can do this ourselves. I think it's really important to I really like Docusaurus for if you don't really want to like style anything. It's a very feature complete thing that just works out of the box normally. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to installation. Uh, it says scaffold a project website, and so if we want to build a skeleton website, we'll just go ahead and copy this. So I'm gonna copy that, and then I'm just gonna go to my GitHub. Da, 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 and I'm gonna go ahead and make a new repo. We're just gonna use the generic one right here. Maybe I'm just gonna put Docusaurus. Yeah, live coding. I know, right? I was really hoping that Meta's open source project would be, ready to kick butt right out of the box. Um, okay, so this is or actually, we're gonna be doing more than just Docusaurus in this. I'll just make a new branch, and then I could demonstrate the other site builders here. But let's just say JAMStack builder, JAMStack, um, meta frameworks that were built on stream. Now, I always like adding a README. I generally put the node thing for that, and then pop in the MIT license so that anybody can use this. I'm not sure why you would want to use this. Okay, and we'll make this public. All right, cool. So if you haven't already like tried out GitHub code spaces, I highly recommend you do it. I like it better than using StackBlitz or Code Sandbox. As you saw, we had some issues there. And I'm fingers crossed that this is going to work out first try. So we'll see how that happens. But basically, instead of like when you go to code, instead of like downloading it via or cloning it like this, you could just click onto this tab, Code Spaces, and then you can just create code space on main. And so CodeSpace, it gives you like limited compute time because like you're running a virtual machine, and so somebody's computer has to pay for running the website, right? Um, GitHub actually has a very generous free tier, and it's more than enough for like a hackathon actually. And so if you want to get more compute time, one really easy thing to do is to sign up for the GitHub education account. And so if you type in this link, mlh.link/pack, um, you could get access to this expedited link that allows you to just get the GitHub education benefits. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on here. Not only do you get GitHub Pro, you also get a bunch of other resources. Da, 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 da. And so you'll get access to some training on educative. You'll get a bunch of cloud credits from Microsoft um, and a few other places. Let's see. Yeah, it's just generally like a really good thing. Oh, I think one of the biggest things is where is it? You get GitHub Copilot, and so if you aren't already using GitHub Copilot, I'm gonna be using it a little bit, but basically it's an LLM model. It's ChatGPT in your code space, except it has the context of all the code that you're looking at, and so it's super helpful. Okay, so I'll just gonna go ahead and drop mlh.link/pack over in the comments. We'll close that out. If you use our link, then you'll be able to get the student developer pack like almost the minute that you verify as a student. Otherwise, um, it can take like 5 to 10 business days. Okay, anyway, that's enough chatting about that. Let's actually build this website thing. Whoop. Okay, so as you can see, we are now in the code space. And so it's given us some crazy domain name. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste. Whoop. I've got to allow that. Copy and paste that build link. Okay, we do want to build this, yes. So it's gonna take a minute, as this takes a while. Yeah. Oh, I guess I should have made a new branch first, and then just called that the Duckysaurus branch, and then I could have just gone straight into the 11T thing. Here we go. By the way, if you haven't already like started learning TypeScript instead of JavaScript, like if you already know JavaScript, like you'll be able to pick up TypeScript super fast. Um, it's just really useful to have all that type safety. That helps a lot with fixing or like debugging. Okay, it looks like it's built most of it, and it's currently working on, I guess, like making it so the rest of this can run with the node modules. So we can go back to poking around. So yeah, we already took a look at blogs. We haven't looked at docs yet, but basically the same thing's going on. Like you're just writing some markdown files. This is where your content goes. We've got an assets folder in here, and I think this is to help demonstrate um, how you could logically group these files together into like subfolders and whatnot. And you'll notice that there's actually a JSON in here, which helps us customize that experience a little bit better. So there's not too much more to look at there. We can take a peek at source and static. Actually, I'm going to take a peek at static first. So when you start working with these like frameworks, it sometimes if you need to like deploy something, there's a separate folder that's called static, and this is where you put all of the files that like are like assets generally. I've seen some frameworks where you need to also put like your CSS files and fonts in here too. But it's basically anything that's definitely not going to change. There are some site generators that like whoop, when they generate a like static directory, the static is actually instead like the build and output directory for your static site generator. And so we'll see in a bit that 11T is one of those. It has a build directory, which actually is all the generated stuff. Not every meta framework is like that. A lot of frameworks they'll end up just like having it deployed from source. Okay, so now we can actually take a peek into source. We can see that there's going to be, I guess, like our core page here. This is actually using, it should be using React, but maybe the React is actually defined under the components. At the very least, it's using React's style like syntax. My Python extensions are complaining. Okay, so yeah, looks like we're just building a header here. Don't really need to dig too much into this. We're just taking a peek at what exists. Okay, so cool. We've got a basic markdown page here too. Looks like all of our CSS for the entire website. This is our global stuff here. And then we've got some components. Cool, cool. Okay, let's go ahead and actually get this thing running now. So it says that we could just, here we go. npm start to run the server, build to build the statics files for production. Just as I mentioned earlier, there is like a build directory. So DocuSource is one of those. Deploy. Okay, so we're gonna just do npm run serve. Oh wait, we have to actually cd into my site first. Where are we? Cd into my websites. Okay, and then we can do npm run start. I don't actually remember what the difference is between npm run start and serve, but if you ever forget what the difference is, you could just go into the package.json, and then there'll be a section that's just called scripts. And so when you run npm run, and then the next word that you say is going to be the script that you run. So in this case, it's going to be running a bunch of DocuSource commands, which are specific to the site generator. And you'll notice that as soon as I got it running, Codespaces just kind of spat out like another page for us to look at. And so this is the thing. This is from our Codespace. So if we take a peek in here, we can see that this is pretty nice, right? It's got table of contents on the right hand side. It's got tape, I guess, like the rest of the pages that you're looking at. Well, you notice that when I click around, the whole page doesn't reload, right? And you'll also notice that like when we do reload, it's really fast. And so if this entire thing was built in like just React, then it might have been a lot slower. But because we're using a meta framework that uses like a hybrid style like structure, we're able to just like ship things a lot fast, or I guess like the developer experience is a lot nicer. Okay, so there's a lot of other like benefits that we can have from this, but I guess I just want to click around and just like show like, yeah, this is a whole thing. And so if we wanted to just like focus on making like maybe a new blog post, right? Let's make a new one for 2024. So all we need to do is pop in here, make a new file. Let's just get in, what is today's date? Today is the 8th. Um, of October. I don't actually remember what format this is. Oh, yeah, there we go. So October 8th, and we can just call this made on stream. Actually, before I do that, um, I'm gonna go ahead and commit everything except for made on stream, just so that we have like a init docusaurus. Let's actually bring this onto its own branch too. Da, 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 da. Create branch. We're going to call this docusaurus. So if we look down here, we'll see that, yep, we are on the docusaurus branch. So we can now safely commit all of these things, and it'll show up in its own branch. Let's publish this branch. So if we were to go back here, we should be able to see that there is a new branch. There we go, docusaurus. Okay. No, we're not going to worry about a pull request. Okay, so now let's actually put some content into here. Oh, this is a read-only thing. Okay. Made on stream. So if we actually take a peek in here, we'll see that there's this little bit up here. Actually, let's look at the first blog post. Um, you'll notice that it has a dash dash dash. And so if you're familiar with Markdown, you may recognize that this is going to be the shortcut for building a horizontal rule, or like a horizontal line that just sits across your page. So if we take a look here, you'll notice that you can't actually see an HR element. I guess even if we were to inspect this, we probably won't see one. Let's just go ahead and search in here. HR. Oh, let's narrow that search a little bit. Yeah, so the HR element, sorry, you probably can't see that. So the HR element doesn't actually exist here, even though we have a dash 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 over here. That's because in Markdown files, I guess let me take a step back. If you aren't familiar with Markdown, it's basically like all of it eventually translates to HTML if you have some sort of like engine that allows you to do that. And so our Markdown to HTML generator basically takes a look at this and anything that's in this, we're going to call this a fence, a configuration fence. Um, it's actually called front matter in Markdown. And basically, this allows you to just like put in a bunch of information here. And so this is just going to give us like the slug. The slug is, I guess, like the ends of your URL link. So if we look here, the slug for blog would be just blog. And so if we look here, there's no slug here because this is the main directory. Okay, and then title. This allows us to, I guess, like access the title of this blog post without actually looking at the content yet. It just looks at just the markdown or just the front matter. And so we could actually just, I'm going to just yoink this. We're going to go over here. We're going to go to the top. Actually, wait. Before I do that, let's just take a peek and see what this looks like because this should be a live site. So we're going to go to blog 2024. There we go. Made on stream. And there's nothing there yet. But you'll notice that there's a bunch of stuff that is already there, which is really neat. And so if we were to just go in here and add in our front matter, we could change this slug to, we'll just call this stream, and we'll just call it made my first blog post on stream. Authors. So the authors bit is going to be a little bit confusing because authors.yaml has only defines two authors here, but we can go ahead and put ourselves in. So I'm just going to put in Ryan. It looks like it's going to say that my name is Sao and that I am a software engineer at Facebook, which is not true, but we're going to pretend that it is for now. And for the URL, let's just put https://google.com. Okay, so now we've got a new author. And so if we were to go here, we could take a look at, maybe we have to go to my site first. No. I don't remember how to look at the authors page. But what we can try doing is we can just take the name of this author right here, which is just Ryan. We can try putting him in right here. And then we can say, let's just put in some lorem ipsum. I'm going to ask actually Copilot to do that for me because I am lazy. Copilot. Can I just, it's a little bit fussy in Markdown files because if you were to do Control I, then that's like a key binding to italicize something. Can you generate a blog, some blog contents on JAMStack stuff so I can put it into this Markdown file? Oh, here we go. It actually got the slogan title for this too. So I'm just gonna honestly copy and paste this and replace the whole thing. Okay, cool. So give us some good content. Beep beep, boop bop. Okay, now let's see how that generated. Okay, cool. So it's got all of the content in here. It's got the tags automatically generated down here. It's got the author over here. So if we just click there, um, well, I guess we just went straight there. Okay, so that is the Docusaurus experience. There's a few other like super cool things under Docusaurus, under plugins. And so I would definitely, I'll just let you all play around with this yourself. So let's just cancel this out so I don't run out of compute time on my thing. Okay. I forgot to actually zoom in my code space, so I'm so sorry if you weren't able to read anything. Um, okay, so for now, this is now dead. We will show that later. Okay, let's hop back to our thing over here. Um, I think, yeah, I think we've got time. So we're gonna also check out a different website generator. We're gonna check out 11T. This is the one that I'm probably gonna be building on stream um, later this week. I forgot to save these links, so I can come back to that. Okay, so 11T takes things a little bit in a different approach. It focuses on being super lightweight and super fast to build. So if we were to actually go to the home page for 11T, it has a benchmark right over here. And for building a 4,000 markdown files, it goes really fast. A lot faster than most of the other static set generators. And I actually really like 11T because it has a really easy mental model as well. And so we'll see how easy that is when we actually build our own project. So I hope you're feeling lucky, chat. We're going to try stackplets again. So far, so good. Okay. Now we just have to install our dependencies. Let's see. I'm going to take a peek at this over here. And let's see if the official starter actually has a way, like a generator for us to just import this into our own thing. It looks like the best way to do this is to just clone it. Um, there are some projects that allow you to use Yarn to, I guess, like build out the boilerplate and template for this stuff. Um, if we have time, I'll show you an example of one that actually uses Yarn. Or sorry, not Yarn, Yeoman. It's a Yeoman template generator. Template generator. Oh, okay. So this actually took 9 seconds to build 16 files. I'm not sure why it took so much longer for this compared to the 4,000 of the other benchmark. Maybe they did like some super optimization or something. Okay, so let's take a peek into the structure for this one. So Docusaurus um, had, let's see, in the top level directory had blog, docs, source, and static. And so all of the code existed in source, and then all of the content existed under blog and docs respectively. And then static is just like where the sites were built, right? Da, 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 da. So if we're to take a peek in 11T, we've got a config folder, a data folder, which we'll talk about later, includes the actual site itself. Now this is the build directory where everything gets built into and is then like, I guess, deployed from. Contents, which is the actual, I guess, like stuff that you're putting into here. And then you've got the actual, I guess, like, oh, wait, this isn't where the code is. This is just where all the static stuff is. So like the CSS files. Okay, cool. So includes has all of the layouts. This is remember how I was talking about like templating earlier? This is where all the templates are, and I'm pretty sure. Well, Docusaurus definitely has it as well. Docusaurus just had it under. Let's see, where do they have that? Is it really all built from index? We build a banner. We build out a container. The subtitle. Nah, there's got to be more stuff. Mm, yeah. All of the rest of the stuff is all like handled over here for Duckysaurus. So Meta's done a lot of work on making it so that you only need to focus on your own content. Unfortunately, that means that it's a little bit harder to, I guess, like make like a really custom experience, but you can still customize a lot of this experience just from like going into components, adding in like new components, adding in new pages, all that stuff. Okay. But I really like 11T because it's a lot, I guess, like it allows you because it's more lightweight, you can actually use more stuff or you can change more of it. So if you want to build any other kind of website, like you could use 11T as part of your engine to deploy it and all that whatnot. Okay. Uh oh, it died. Or archive is just a broken link. About is a broken link. Are these all broken links? Why is it not working? Let's say build, start, npm run start. Oh, that's so sad. What is wrong with this template? I don't know if this is a code issue. It's probably not a code issue. It's probably like a stack blitz thing. Um, maybe it's just being upset. Okay. We will explore more of 11T in the next workshop. For the sake of keeping things moving, I'm going to pretend that all of this worked. And we'll talk much more about like templating later. I will probably, yeah, because we have access to the GitHub repo. So when I talk about templating later, we'll do that there. Okay. So Astra is another really cool one. This was actually my first Jamstack, I guess, like meta framework. But I would probably start with 11T first. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, okay, yeah, I'll talk about that under the next slide. Okay, so let's take a peek at some resources for learning web development. I guess like focused around learning enough to actually build a Jamstack style website. So this first one is roadmap.sh. And so basically this is actually an open source project where a bunch of developers were like, hey, what order should we learn these things in? Because there's a lot of technologies to learn. They basically came together and made a bunch of roadmaps. And so there's one for like the entirety of like a computer science degree. Um, there's stuff on like, I guess, yeah, skill-based roadmaps. Hopefully you can see this all right. Let me zoom in a little bit. Uh, and then they've also got a bunch of role-based roadmaps. And so if you're going to be building, I guess like Jamstack websites, that means you're basically like only worried about like the front end, because there's not really a back end since we don't like have any like dynamic elements really. Uh, so if were to just go and click into front end, we'll see this lovely roadmap. And it looks like there's a lot going on. Basically, you just follow this yellow bit, the yellow stuff, and this is the core path. And then under each of these core paths, you can click in and see all of the subpaths. And so, yeah, um, the nice thing about this is that if you click on most of these links, most of them also have resources for you to take a peek at. Now, Scrimba is going ham with the sponsor, or I guess like the marketing budget. It's super cool to see. Um, Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff out here, and it gives you links and resources to actually learn each of these things. And so if we were to look here, the recommendation for front end is to first learn about the internet, then HTML, CSS, JavaScript, since that's what the entire internet's built off of. And you learn some Git. Yeah. Da, 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 da. You learn how to pick up a framework, a component framework, and then you learn how to style your CSS better. You get all the way into it, and so one thing that I've seen is that like a lot of like senior software engineers, they don't even like necessarily go through this entire roadmap either. Um, so it's entirely possible for you to still be successful in any of the things that they mention here. Um, Without having finished the entire roadmap. But this roadmap is supposed to give you kind of like a scaffolded approach to like guiding your learning. Because as you start like learning web development, there's going to be a lot of things to learn, and so the order is what you're trying to gain out of this. And one of the other really nice things about a roadmap is that they recently actually launched um, roadmap projects, which basically gives you a list of projects to build. And so it's kind of like a college experience where you get like an assignment and it tells you the specs of the assignment. And then it lets you, I guess, just like build the thing. The A big thing that separates it is that from like the college experience or like the university experience of like learning software engineering is that you don't get graded for this stuff. But the really nice thing about this is that by building this, um, it's very like open ended, so you can approach it however you want. And so your definition of done depends on you and like how into it you want to be. Da, 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 da. There's gonna be something else I wanted to say. I don't remember what it was. Okay, anyway, yeah, you can pick and choose any projects that you want from this, and these are all the things that they recommend for front end. Um, Other really cool thing is that you could actually make your own roadmaps. You could make AI generated ones too. Da, 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 da. Beginner roadmaps. I don't remember how to do that. Maybe you have to log in. I'm not going to log in because the roadmap that I built, I was just playing around with it. But yeah, super cool resource for figuring out what to learn next and some starting places for it. If you want a more like another option, you could also try the Odin project. So the Odin project has a lot more, I guess, like custom built, like okay. You know what? Let's just dive into it and take a peek at what it looks like. So it offers three different paths for you to take a peek at. So let's take a peek. I mean, we've been looking at a lot of JavaScript stuff. Let's take a peek at the Ruby on Rails one. So it gives you a crash course on Ruby. This is pretty similar to the roadmaps project in the sense that um, it has a lot of resources, but it also has like a explanation of what is going on. And the real kicker is that the Odin project itself is actually built using a like Jamstack architecture style. um, so if we were to like scroll down here and then find this on GitHub, we can look at the curriculum itself. Whoop, no, I want to look at the repo for it. Curriculum repo. Da, 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 da. We can actually take a peek at what they use to build it. Package.json. So this team is using Markdown lint. Um, let's see. Was that a? I'm curious. Was that in here? Oh, maybe they custom built it. Or maybe this is just the content and oh yeah, I bet you this is just content. Yeah, because this is just markdown files. Actually, we can probably take a peek here. It says it's all JavaScript. See, is there a build directory? Templates? Nope. Okay, so it's quite possible that they're using like a microservices approach to this, where they have the actual website being run somewhere else. Ah, here we go. The main website. Let's see what they used here. It looks like they used Ruby on Rails to build this project. Let's see, is Ruby on Rails in here? Okay, so they actually built their own without using a site generator, which is super cool to see. And I guess that makes sense because the Odin project is about teaching people how to build websites. So if you want like more explanation, that's pretty nice. You should go to the Odin project. And then but otherwise, like the developer roadmap is it's a really good learning resource for figuring out the order of things, but also gives you a bunch of resources. And yeah, look at that. It's got a bunch of other tips. Okay, so that's enough poking around there. Yeah, both of these projects are open source, super cool. Give them a look since it is Hacktoberfest. Okay, so my personal recommendation for I guess like if you want to learn the roadmap for specifically learning how to do Jamstack stuff is to first off like when you're looking at here and you're trying to figure out which one to build with, you should first take a look at the languages that it's built in. Not every one of them use the same language. Like for example, Ruby is very different than like JavaScript. It's got more of a Python-like syntax. Some of them use, let's see, a lot of templating languages. Some of them use like React, and so if you don't want to learn React, you don't have to. Um, Astro is very framework agnostic. One of its selling points is that it uses the thing that's called islands, which allows you to use a mix of different components, like just like in place. So you can see all of these were like, yeah, the only thing that you change is the actual component itself, and you don't actually change any of the rest of the layout. Da, 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 da. Okay, so with that said, the first thing I recommend is kind of picking a tech stack that's relevant to what it is that you want to do. And so you could, okay, I do not have my words straight. Okay, but basically, the Stack Overflow, like everybody's favorite place for figuring out how to solve problems before like any of these LLMs got up. They do a really big developer survey because a lot of developers use this place, right? And so this is generally pretty representative of um, the people that are like willing to share like what it is that they're working on. So we can see that like JavaScript is the most used language, followed by HTML and CSS, followed by Python. And so if you want to see like if the language that you're adopting is going to have a lot of resources, then what you're going to want to look for is the language or framework or library or whatnot that is the I guess the sorry, brain fart. If there are more people, then there's probably more resources. Da, 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 da. So here we go. Yeah, like everybody uses Node.js. A lot of people are using React. And there's probably a way for you to check out like what companies are hiring for and what technologies people are hiring for. Look, our boy Astro even made it over there. Okay, so that's enough looking at that. And then so if you're starting from scratch, then you should definitely figure out like the anatomy of HTML and CSS. And so one like pro tip that like helps you get from I guess like super beginner, like having never coded before, to getting to intermediate and like nice is by starting to use like other people's css. And so the one that I really like to use is pico css. It's a lot, it's more lightweight than like using bootstrap or tailwind. And it comes with like some pretty nice like presets. And so if we actually look at um this right here, which is the repo of the workshop resources. This right here, I actually built this mostly using like there's no framework for this. You know, it's easier to just show you all the GitHub repo for this. Da, 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 da. We just take a peek at index.html. We'll see that like this is pretty lightweight. And the main thing that is in here is just like there's only one style sheet in here. And then if we look at the actual styles themselves, um, I didn't even have to put any like custom classes besides container on here. And like Pico CSS just like gave us a bunch of really nice presets. Where is it? Here. Yeah. It actually even has like automatic like light mode versus dark mode preferences, which is pretty neat. Anyway, I think this is a really good place to start. Bootstrap is definitely the more popular one. Ba, 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 ba. And so it can be as like light as like Pico CSS. It has different, I guess, like defaults. But this one's like much bigger. So if we were to look at some examples, da, da, da. All right, this is just a bunch of. Okay, hang on. I think I clicked the wrong link. Let's take a look at the docs. Yeah, so it's got defaults for all of the text stuff. The containers is where it's also pretty useful for, because yeah, it comes with more presets than what your browser handles, which is pretty nice. Okay, now where were we? Okay, da, 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 da. I think Pico CSS is lighter weight than Bootstrap, and so I when I'm learning a new thing, um, especially like CSS, I would recommend that you start with something that's lighter weight, and then move up to whatever it is that your job or like whatever it is. Like once you hit the limits of that, then you can pick up something else. Or if you're like just ready to learn something new, and then after that, then you can maybe like try out Tailwind. Now this is a little bit of a different like roadmap than what roadmap.sh is suggesting for front end. Um, this is just a personal recommendation off of my experience. But yeah, okay. So after you figured out how to do that, you should learn how to start manipulating the DOM and adding interactivity with JavaScript. Um, I think one thing that I really like. No, I don't know where I was going with that. Okay. After that, I think you should try to pick up a templating language. This is where you start implementing the dry principles. And so templating languages da, 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 are really handy because whoop, let's see, where is it? It should be under includes, layouts. Let's just look at the base. Basically allows you to write pages and just like it allows you to put in some business logic into your HTML code. And so like right here, for example, this is just going to import in like, oh, actually, what's a better example? So here in this 11T template, we actually can use a for loop to iterate through all of the collections. And so this collections thing is something that I guess like is fed by the stuff that's in your YAML front matter for your markdown files. And so it basically allows you to just like make everything a component, like more HTML stuff as a component, which is super handy. And there's going to be a few languages that we're going to take a peek at. I'm not going to dive too much into it for today. Okay, let's see. Yeah, after you learn a little bit about a templating language, I would recommend you start learning a meta framework and then you learn a component framework. And the reason for that is that meta frameworks, they do a lot for you with actually getting the site deployed, um, and like handling like file-based routing. And then component frameworks come in to make it so that everything is more stateful. Um, and it really allows you to start customizing your meta frameworks. And then after that, you can then, I guess, like build whatever it is that you want. Once again, this is just a personal recommendation of like how I would learn web development again if I were to start from scratch. And the main reason why like I recommend like learning it in this order is that like I definitely met some people who have like just like straight up jumped straight into React without actually knowing JavaScript, and it's been a very painful process for them. And one of the examples of this is that like it's really funny because like when I'm helping debug React problems, most of the time it's actually just JavaScript problems or like other like web development problems, and it's not specific to React. And so an example of this was highlighted in this post. I'm not actually on X, but I was like looking. It's just like a I don't remember where I first heard this thing where it's like 90% of like framework problems are actually just JavaScript problems. Okay, anyway, so this example is highlighting a performance thing where basically inside this like components right here, um we're constantly calling this thing right here filter products, which itself is a function. And so like if we're looking at the big O complexity, yeah, we don't care about it. But if we're looking at like actual performance, like you could reduce that by half. And so it's a very simple thing, right? You just put it into a constant because so you don't have to recalculate it, and then you just pop that constant into here. Um, which is like, yeah, that's something that you didn't need to know React for in order to like kind of fix. And so if you learn things in an order like this, you'll avoid a lot of those kinds of problems because you're already thinking like a web developer um before you start like playing with the fancy tools. Right? It's the same reason why you start with a screwdriver instead of with a power tool when you're learning how to build things. Okay, anyway. Okay, here's a very general framework for debugging. Um, First off, you got to figure out where the problems can come from. Then you identify the problems and figure out where they came from, and then you can actually solve the problem. And so, I'm not going to be demonstrating that too much today, since we're probably going to be diving more into the design later today. Okay. Here's a few like bonus tips on, I guess, like open source and job seeking. Uh, nice thing is about like open source is that you can get access to really large code bases, um, and like get some experience trying to get those things running. And so you get bonus points if like you've got like a dream company and that dream company has an open source thing. Then like building and using these large open source projects will get you pretty familiar with like a lot of like the industry standards. Um, so like if you really want that like MLH fellowship, for example, then you should start getting familiar with some of the open source projects that exist out there, so that you can, I guess, like be ready for the fellowship. It also definitely helps to take a look at technical blogs at the places that you want to work at. One of the places I really wanted to work at, for example, was Strava, and they have technical blogs. And so, if you don't know what Strava is, basically it's like a workout tracker. It tracks like running. It's mostly for like distance stuff. So, like if you do running or cycling, then like this is my go-to. But yeah, let's see. So they have some. Oh, this is just a community forum. Where is developer home? This is a thread. This isn't what I'm thinking about. Um, where is it? Yeah, some companies they'll actually just like straight up have their engineering blogs just like on the internet, which is super cool. Or they'll actually like publish like whole like research papers. So if you want to work at this specific company or like in a specific field, it definitely helps to take a look at what that company is spitting out as far as like research and technical blogs go. If you want to be like a technical contributor to one of these places. Da, 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 da. Okay, here we go. Here's an example blog post that they wrote on dependency injection. Blah blah blah. Okay, so yeah, that's enough about that. We've already seen that. We're not looking at this right now. Okay, cool. Other cool thing is that there's a lot of resources on GitHub. Like I recently found a project, or actually, like okay. So if you're looking for like internships and stuff, I found out that there's like some GitHub repos where they'll actually just like drop all of like the like a curated list of like internships. Yeah, here we go. Here's an example. Do, 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 do. Yeah, so these are some places that this person has. This is the curated list. Da, 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 da. Simplified jobs. Here we go. Here's another one. This is probably going to be a bigger list since it's got more stars. Yeah, there you go. So it's really funny that you can find that. I found some textbooks on here before too. Um, there's definitely people who've posted like the entirety of like all of the leak code problems that they've solved. People who've posted like the exercises or like their exercises for like their solutions for like the Odin projects or like roadmaps. Um, okay, let's see. Also, the student developer pack, which I've already shown. If you haven't done it, it's mlh.link/pack, which is pasted in chat earlier. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I have to talk about for Jamstack. Now, because I don't want to dive too much into getting started with actually building our custom one. Yet, actually, no. Before we can start building our own custom, I guess like Jamstack website, it always helps to actually design it out first. Now, coming in with a design focused thing allows you to prototype things a lot faster. And that basically means that you could make, because like a lot of like problems that come with building projects is when you, what am I looking for? What am I trying to say? You can catch problems earlier if you man, my brain's just not working right now. Okay, you know what? Why don't we look it up? Why should you prototype? Yes, yes. There we go. There's the big one. Um, it allows you to test out your ideas and concepts before you invest too many resources into it. And so, for example, if you're building out a website and then you find out that like the user flow sucks and that it's actually just like a pain to use, but you've already invested all of your resources in like actually building out that thing, then it's more expensive and more difficult to, I guess, like refactor your project than it is to refactor a design because a design is just like drawings and like pixels, right? But like if you're refactoring a website, I mean, like this is what like where technical debt comes in from. Okay, so there's a couple of different cool things that we could check out. Excalidraw and TL are useful for, I guess, like whiteboarding. And so if you want to, I guess, like draw a diagram, like we've got like a cool like handwriting feature, so you could draw your circles. Yeah. You got your text stuff here too, and you can draw frames, just like in Figma. So if we wanted to make this like a, let's just block out like the Google search thing as like a lo-fi Google. And so when I say lo-fi, what I mean is like low fidelity, which is like low amount of like detail. Like it's supposed to be a very broad like idea of what it is that you're trying to build. So if we were to draw Google, we know that there's like a search bar. And so we can just plop in, it says search bar. This is really small, so we're gonna actually make this a bit larger. Okay, cool. Well, let's see what else Google has. They've got the logo, so we can go ahead and block out a part for the logo. And so if you want to, I guess, like follow along. Oh, wait, this isn't the live link. I want to use the one that I already pasted in the chat. Here we go. So this is a live link to the thing. This is the one that's posted in the Discord announcement. If you want to see this afterwards. Okay, maybe we can put a Google logo there. Maybe we can put like a Google search button. Da, 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 bulletin. Button. Yeah. And so like if you like block out this, then like this is much easier to rearrange than like if you were to do all of this in CSS. And then find out that like your layout sucked. So that's the kind of the motivation for doing this first. So for the rest of this stream, what we're going to do is we're going to start designing um, our own workshop on, sorry, our own documentation site. And let's see, we got to figure out something to theme it after. And so, being a huge fan of lettuce myself, um, I'm thinking about making a documentation site um, on maybe like this lettuce service. No, you know what? Here's what we can do. We can just make like we can make a blog site talking about like a lettuce farmer. No, you know what? Maybe I'm getting too far into this. Let me know in chat if there's anything that you want to see me build specifically. Otherwise, I'm gonna just start doing a bunch of stupid things. I forget what my plans were before. Let me take a look at my plans. Whew. Do, 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 do. Okay, So let's just say that we've got like a very generic sort of let's see. Let's just set up a thing for project requirements. I'm going to set up a new text box. Here's a list of requirements that I have prepared. An open source project. Okay. So almost every documentation site is going to have some sort of a landing page. And then it'll also have a section for getting started, installation, setup, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of this will actually just live on the home page. So we've got our list of things that we want. Now let's go ahead. Now if you want to, I guess, like know what it is that I'm doing, basically for TL draw, if you click on drag on something, normally you can just move it around. But if you do that by using the Alt modifier or the, I believe it's Options on Mac, I forget, then you could basically drag out a clone of that. And if you combine that with the Control modifier, then you could make it snap to a certain distance or threshold. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, cool. So now we've got that. You can also do it with Shift if you want to move it in a straight line like that. Okay, anyway. So we're gonna make this the lo-fi of the home page. Okay, so maybe we want to have, let's see, what's a good landing page layout? Landing page, lo-fi layout. Let's just take a peek at some examples that other people have done. I really need to organize my tabs better. Oh yeah, so part of the design process, generally, like, you want to figure out like what the user wants, and then you like interview people, like the users. Actually, let's just do a little bit of a design flow. No, what is it? Design double diamond. So there's this thing that's called the double diamond thinking model in design, and so this basically tells you like the order of things that you should be doing, and like, okay, so basically the y-axis, the y-axis is basically just like the number of ideas. Okay, and then the x-axis is is equal to timeline of the project. No, not, it's not a timeline per se because it's not like to scale, but this is like just like the order of things to do. So basically, the first thing you normally do is you just like, this is your not brainstorming. This is your market research. This is where you try to figure out as much as you can. You interview people. It's like, what are your pain points and whatnot. And then afterwards, you start like kind of categorizing them and smashing out the ones that you're actually going to deal with. And then you put everything else in a backlog. And then once you figure out the like core like problems of what it is that you're trying to solve, then you start the brainstorming process of figuring out what to do. And then you start figuring out, I guess, like, you then start narrowing down from your brainstorm what it is that you're. what your ultimate thing is going to look like. And so we're gonna actually skip through a little bit of that in our design process for this project, because I guess like the pain point. Actually, you know what? Why don't we actually just demonstrate doing this? There's no need to skip this because it's actually going to be not too. It's not going to take that long. Da, 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 da. Okay, so I'm actually going to make a new page for this. We're going to call page 1. This is the design process. And then this is the actual lo-fi prototype. Okay, so we'll move this into the lo-fi prototype. By the way, if you've done this kind of like design stuff before, this whiteboard is pretty much like a stand-in replacement for something like Miro or like FigJam. Except, uh, by the way, I forgot to mention this, but in the spirit of open source, all of these tools right here are also open source. So TL Draw is an open source project. PenPot, also an open source project. Okay, now getting back into it. There's also usually a section where we have a, what's it called? Mood boarding. Actually, you know what? Maybe if I just looked up the design process is generally about 6 steps. And this is true in science experiments, in design, and in engineering. This is roughly like the 6 things that you need to do. Okay. So empathizing, this is where you normally do your user research, and then that leads into defining your problem. That leads into the brainstorming, into the actual prototyping. And so prototyping is also what you do on the convergence part of the double diamond. And then the testing, which tells you which prototypes actually worked. And then the actual implementation, which is the, I guess, like final project. And so this very much does fit in just around. I think there's an extra large. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? I could probably just make an actual line. That'll be easier. Oh, I forgot that lines, it likes to actually snap to the objects themselves. It's fine. We'll just split this in half. And so yeah, that this roughly corresponds to each other. Actually, wait, no. I drew the line wrong. This is where the line should be. Yeah. Okay, so in our use case, let's actually give this project a name. This is going to be JAMStack. JAMStack. Oh, okay. Give me a second. My brain is running on tired right now. Okay, let me get some water and then we'll keep on going. Okay, let's see. Where were we? Okay, so right now, we need to figure out what the pain points of our users are. And so in this case, what is it that we're trying to build? Let's see. Let's just call this the discover frame. I'm going to use the sticky notes, which you can just make with by pressing N. Um, and these are going to be kind of like imaginary, kind of like not necessarily imaginary. Okay, so we're building a documentation site, which means that we want what are the features that we want? Like, because GitHub actually has a wiki service, and I'm going to actually highlight a wiki that I built in a previous workshop. So one of the schools I was teaching at, we ran a creative coding workshop using P5, which also is a open source project. This one is a library for creating like animations using HTML canvas. And so we actually put everything using, like we put a lot of it into the GitHub wiki, which is pretty good. Right? Like it's a series of markdown files, and so you could click around, you could hyperlink things. Um, yeah, it's pretty neat, but it's not as full featured as a lot of other projects or a lot of other static site generators. Like one feature that is really useful. What is that? I guess one feature that's really useful is just being able to actually customize this style. Because the GitHub Wiki one is kind of like opinionated to GitHub's design system. You can't actually change too much about it. So maybe what we want is we want a make our documentation site reflect our brand identity. Whoa, brand identity, marketing stuff. Okay. Uh, okay, so what else? What are some other pain points that we have around documentation sites? We want to uh, have a simpler way to write content without writing HTML, raw HTML. Okay. What are some other things that we can have? What other pain points? Another pain point is, let's see. Actually, is the GitHub wiki? Yeah, the GitHub wiki, you can see it takes a while to load that. So we want it to be really fast. We want it to be faster than that even. We want it to be fast at loading new pages. We also want it to be what else do we want? Responsive uh, to like window size. Okay, so I think, wow, why did I write Discord? I meant to write Discover. Okay, I think that's enough problems for us to kind of have. So the next part is define. And then I'm just going to go ahead and also put in the develop and deliver things. I guess in this case, the discover and define thing is already kind of pretty similar, especially since I'm not going to go through the effort of, I guess, like interviewing people to be like, oh, what are your pain points? Because like in a documentation site thing, like this is a pretty well defined like problem space as it is, so we don't really need to worry about that. I guess it's finally bright enough outside to turn off my lamp. Okay, so as far as the developing goes, um, lo and behold, we'll be using a JAMStack meta framework. Okay, let's see what else. Man, I really should have like thought about this a little bit more um before like deciding to do a full like design side tangent. Okay. Uh I did not do a good job of demonstrating that process, but this process is definitely something that you should consider for uh, a project that's more more interesting than a documentation generator. Trying to figure out. Okay, let me know in chat if you guys want to, I guess, or if y'all want to continue with this design dive. I feel like this isn't the move because I think I'm getting a little distracted from actually building the lo-fi prototype. Okay, so I'm just going to jump straight into the lo-fi prototype. I'm going to just yoink these two things, put them into here. Well, I suppose if you don't already have like project requirements, this process would actually help you narrow down what some of the other like project requirements are. If you have like a project manager, your project manager is normally responsible for actually getting those requirements to you because clients don't always know what it is that they want to build. They have an idea of like what problems they want solved, and they can tell you a lot about their problems and their use cases. But at the end of the day, like you need somebody in the middle of that to kind of like translate the user problems into something that's actually actionable and achievable by a developer. Okay, so let's take a peek at what this landing page looks like. So we're probably going to want to start with a hero banner. Let's actually expand this thing out a bit. So we're just going to go ahead and call this hero banner. And so if you don't know what a hero section is, basically if you go to like let's go to like apple.com, right? What's the first thing you're going to see? First thing you're going to see is the thing that Apple really wants you to know about, which is the Apple iPhone 16 Pro. And it's got like this intelligence thing, right? And so if you keep on scrolling down, yeah, it just focuses on like the main things that they're known for. And so with a hero banner, you want to make sure that the first thing that they see is something that's super interesting. And so most sites have some sort of like a landing graphic. We saw earlier that like the Odin project, what was their hero banner? Yeah, their hero banner was this really cool like SVG isometric graphic, and with a really strong like headline with a call to action, um, which takes you straight to the curriculum. We can also take a look at PenPot, um, penpot.app, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But this is basically a open source design tool. It's very similar to Figma, um, except it's completely open source and it's self-hostable. And let's see what their pricing model is actually. Yeah, the pricing model is mostly just to add in like authentication. and like other like administration things. So like you really don't need that. And like even if you did, you could just open like host this yourself, and then yeah, there you go. You can self-host. And then you could actually just like add in these things yourself. Oh, I got distracted. We're actually looking for the hero banner on this. So the hero banner on this one is actually just like a animated GIF of exactly what it is that this service is offering. So we've got our tagline, we've got our call to actions, which are the things that prompt the user to actually do something. And we've got a little description of like what it is that this thing is. And so for ours, wow, I keep on getting lost in this. Um, we'd probably want to, let's see, what's the best way to do this? Oh, wait, you're right. I could just put a frame inside this frame. I could call this the hero banner, and then I can actually figure out the layouts a little bit better. So maybe we want to have our image. So this is going to be our image. We can have our text up here. Um, I guess we don't really have a specific project that we're building right now. So we're just going to call this our project. We do cool things, but better. Yeah, okay. So now we've got our hero banner. Let's see, what's next? This one has a bunch of, okay, so this one has the product description, and then about us. I'm totally just like yoinking this. But this is what the process would look like if you were to completely go through the lo-fi. Um, now, we've only got like 15 minutes left, which is not a terrible amount of time. So I'm gonna actually skip around. We're gonna pretend that this is our lo-fi because I don't want to just like copy this, but this is basically like how I would structure building a lo-fi in this whiteboard. By the way, if you like want to make this a collaborative experience with other people, you could always just go over to the share thing, grab the editor link, and then just give it to other people. I'm not going to be doing that since this is going to be a publicly available resource, and I don't want anybody to post things that they shouldn't on this whiteboard. But yeah, okay. So I'm going to yoink this. I'm going to pop into PenPot. Okay, so I've already got a board set up over here. We can actually, why don't we actually take a peek at what it's like after you log in? After you log in, we're doing a Cloudflare thing, Cloudflare challenge. Oh. We've got a lot of libraries and templates that we can actually just pull from, which is super nice. You can actually even do whiteboarding in here. I think whiteboarding is easier in something that's a little bit more purpose-built, like TL Draw, especially because you don't need to have a file that's attached to this. We can take a peek at that, maybe. But the main thing I want to focus on is actually the prototype template. So we're actually just going to yoink something in, and we're going to check this one out. I was going to build this from scratch, but my time management. Okay, so if we go into here, there's normally in these kinds of like design tools, there's normally a hierarchy on the left-hand side. And so it looks like the way that this project is organized is they put their components onto dedicated pages. So like button states, the toggle, we've got the overlay. This is probably a component. Okay. So this whole thing is grouped together under cover. we've got, what is this destination thing? Oh, it's just a button SVG. These are all, oh yeah, these are all SVGs. Okay. We got the text and we got screenshots. Ah, that makes sense. Okay, maybe this isn't a super good example of like everything that Penbot can do because they took screenshots instead of just like, doing everything in Penpot. But one of the things that people really like Figma for is like their prototyping tools, which allows you to go like frame by frame and make like your project like kind of interactive, so you can get a sense for like whether or not your user flow works. I'm realizing I'm talking a lot about user flow without actually explaining what user flow is. User flow is, yeah, a visual representation of the path the user takes to do something. So there's a quick example of that. I'm gonna yoink that and paste it into this. There we go. Okay, cool. Whoop, wrong pen pot. Okay, so if we were to actually try running this, we should be able to, there should be a bunch of clickable stuff. What a terrible prototype. Oh, maybe the button states work. Oh, there you go. Okay, so if we were to go into navigation, yeah, there we go. It doesn't look like there's animations in this example. So let's see if there's a way for us to add animations. So there's a prototype session over here. Let's try to, okay. So after you click on the prototype tab, and you can click on the elements that you want to be like clickable, and the things that are actually going to trigger the transitions. But what we're looking for is specifically what happens on the interaction. And so if we click, we've got an action, navigate. So these are all the things that we can make it do. I hope you guys can see this, or I hope that all of y'all can see this. I can't really make the UI bigger. It looks like. So we may have to live with this. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, so we can actually have a full animation. So if we were to actually make this push, let's see what happens when we run the animation again. I think we need to reload the actual thing. Yeah, there we go. So we've got some basic animations in there. It's not as feature rich as Figma, but that is something that like is probably actively being developed in the Penpot project. Let's actually take a peek at Penpot's repo. Oh, did you see that? I don't know if you all saw that, but if you look at the docs for this, this thing is built in Nunjucks. And so Nunjucks is actually a templating language, which is a pretty big sign that this probably used some sort of a meta framework. Lo and behold, it uses 11T. Let's actually just take a quick peruse on this. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. That's some good stuff. Okay. I am curious though. Did they also use any sort of a CSS framework? I don't know what Luxon is. Okay, I'm getting a little distracted. Okay, so we've already seen that. Okay. Let's poke around another example. Let's go through the UI mockup example. Okay, so this is just the cover page. Let's actually dive into the structure of this. So we've got the splash screen. We've got a text. We've got a bunch of fonts. Da 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 da. Okay, background image with some boxes. Oh, that's a nice opacity layer right there. Got plants, two plant pictures for the background. Another search thing, we can take advantage of the prototyping grids. But yeah, so there you go. Under columns, under guides, we can make columns. We can even make a grid layout. Cool beans. So columns are really useful for making sure that your items are actually like aligned. It looks like they didn't take too much advantage of that. Nope, actually they did. So if we look here in this column, we can see that this entire callout box or this module is actually lined up with this profile really nicely. And same on the other side with this shop icon. We can see also that they used this guideline to line up these tags up here, along with this title and along with these cards over here. Um, yeah. So one thing that's going to help, I guess, like make you a better like designer, mechanically, is like a lot of these prototyping tools take advantage of these components. So this is similar to like this is the thing that like do not repeat yourself. That drive principle that we were talking about earlier, kind of like talks about. And so you can take advantage of that in the design world by also using components. Um, and so let's see. Let's see how they made it component. If we were to, let's see how easy it is to make our own component by starting off by making our own. Let's see, I forget what's down here. Our own frame. Oh, it's called a board here. That's a very small board. So small. Actually, wait. Let's just take a peek at the existing components and see what they are. So the idea of components is that like you take something that's kind of reusable and then you could just like make an instance of it. It's kind of like in the principles of like object-oriented programming, you've got like inheritance, right? Um, and like polymorphism and all that stuff. So those exist to a degree in design as well. So if we're going to just make a copy of this, we can see that this copy actually doesn't have the the dot in the middle. And so that basically just means that this is an instance of it. And so what we can do is we can go in here. We can actually just change this to like, what's a fake plant in Swedish? There's at one of the stores in the States, IKEA. uh yeah. They have a bunch of fake plants, and I just find it funny that they're called like faka, um, which is Swedish for fake plant. So we're gonna pretend that this is our fake plant. Faka. And you will notice that wow, okay. Faka. Let's make sure that the stroke for this whoop, let's make sure that the fill for this is readable. Okay. Actually, instead of doing that, um, let's see if they have. Do they have variables in this? I don't know. They do. Okay, so this is where all of our constants are. Okay. Let's see what we can do with this. Set overrides. Okay. So we can reset overrides. So I probably should have mentioned that I haven't actually used penpot yet. I just know that it exists. Um, I'm mostly a Figma user myself. See, what else can we do with this? But yeah, a lot of the shortcuts that I was talking about earlier that work in TL Draw actually also work in penpot and in Figma as well, or they exist in some capacity. So we can get. It looks like the control snapping doesn't really work because it automatically kind of snaps if you line it up just right. But the shifts modifier does allow you to just like drag it on rails. The alt modifier actually also allows you to do the same thing, which is the duplicate thing. Okay, so this might actually be a good example of how to use a component. So let's say we've got Faka over here, and then let's just give this one, what is fake plant in, I don't know, Spanish, let's just say planta falsa. Let's make sure this is actually readable. Okay, and let's say instead of like having the item type, we didn't actually want to have that at all. So let's just go ahead and hide that. And theoretically, we should be able to push the updates. Oh yeah, no, it's already done. So if you noticed, as soon as we hid the text for item type in the primary component, it kind of auto percolates all the way down to like every instance of this. And so let's say if we only wanted to do that to one of these, it doesn't affect the other or anything else. And so that's how you take advantage of components and prototyping tools. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but something else that's going to help a lot is taking advantage of auto layout. So a lot of developers, especially, who don't take the time to learn how to use prototyping tools, they don't really. They just like actually no. This is a developer specific thing, but it's just like a problem as a whole. You know what? Okay, I really don't have time for this. We're at the end. If you want to learn more about like how to actually use like penpot as a tool better, um, definitely check out the pen docs. Or you could join us at the next stream, or the next time I stream this workshop, which is going to be, I have the dates. Let's take a look at the schedule. So part one was just now. Part two is going to be, if I remember correctly, yeah, it's going to be actually on day 6. Um, Here and here. Now this is obviously localized to my time. So I think today, yeah, this is the last workshop for the day. I hope you all tune in to the Today in Global Hack Week, day 5. So big shout out there. Yeah, thanks again for tuning in, everybody. I'll be seeing you another time. Cheers.